line was checked. The puck sat there for a moment. Now York is shot. Score! Kev York's first in the National, and it's 2-1 Philadelphia.
This is episode 95 of the Liberty Yell. Danny Deemer here with Chris Stumpo.
As always, how are you, buddy?
I'm the best I've been as a Flyers fan in 4, 5, dude, maybe more years, because I feel as if we actually have a clear direction now and a commitment to the direction. Like, it's not fugazi, it's not fan service or lip service. It's they actually want to build it the right way, and they actually have gone against people who are against it. They, like Tortorella, I was watching an interview last night. He was saying he doesn't care about all the naysayers. He said keep writing letters to him about it. He's going to stick to the process, and that's what this organization needed. So I'm doing good. How about you?
Just a weight off my shoulders, if you will, Danny. And I know it's just let's not jump ahead and get too caught up in it, but I can't express how much it really does seem like Keith Jones was the right hire. Obviously, there's a window that Keith Jones gets that everyone loves him right now, blah, blah, blah. And he even admitted that. I think I was listening to him on, I forget, because he's been on how many shows in the last week and a half? He was on some show, and he was talking about how, it's nice that everyone's excited for me, and I really appreciate the warm welcome everyone's giving me. But I understand that I have a window here before people are like, all right, where's all that talk at now, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So he gets it, and that's where the breath of fresh air comes from. It's the way he talks, and the way he gets his message across so far. I mean, that press conference was the most impressive thing they've done as an organization in
wow, I can't tell you how long.
I legitimately don't know the last time that I walked away from anything the Flyers have done in that circumstance and been impressed. And I was impressed about a week and a half ago when they did that press conference. I really was. It was just nice to hear, man, really. So I'm doing well. Better than this time last year, if you will.
The reason why that press conference is so refreshing is because it's almost like with all the issues they had, where do you start? Mm-hmm. How do you start the healing process? Because it is deeper than the locker room. It is above the locker room, or it was, I should say. And it's not as simple as going out and getting a Johnny Gaudreau. I did want to get Johnny Gaudreau, but it really is not that simple. It wasn't a locker room fix. It wasn't a quick go out, get the personnel and fix it. And that was really what was so demoralizing as a fan. It was like, well, how does this team... If the problem is the owner, how do I force him out? Yeah. You know? And as a fan, it's a difficult spot to be in because you just feel like the person who's running your team is just sending you down a dark path for forever. Really, but this was the step. I didn't know what the step was going to be, but this was it, and I knew it as soon as I watched the press conference. That is step one in the healing process in the minds of Flyers fans. It was to me, and now all I could do is sit back and just, I guess, enjoy the summer. I don't know how enjoyable it's going to be, but it's going to be interesting.
I think you said it best a couple of days ago, and they came out and owned it, is what they did. And we've been being bullshit for the last how many years, and for them to come out and, like you said, I think you said it yesterday, hey, we've been bad. This has sucked. We understand that. We're not gaslighting you anymore into thinking that shit has been good when it's really been just abysmal, bottom of the barrel for the last how many years. I mean, you can go back and back. It's been so long, and it's nice to see them just kind of say, hey, we see what you're seeing now, okay? There's no more bullshit that's going to be spewed out of this organization. Keith Jones has said how many times they're going to be transparent with us, honest with us, let us know what's going on. And that's all we ask for. And that's all that we've been saying. We said this last year on this very podcast. If they would have just come out, and this is Chuck Fletcher and that Dave Scott era, if you will, if they would have just came out and been like, hey guys, this is going to suck, we're not good, but that's not what they did. They aggressive retool, we're still 6 points out of a playoff spot in December. It's really nice to hear, and of course you still have to see them actually do it, back up those words, but it's nice to hear them be like, hey guys, we see what you see, we suck, we're going to suck for the next couple years, but we're going to do this the right way. So hey, that's what we asked for, right?
And it's the people it's coming from. Like, Keith Jones is genuine in what he's saying because he has said it on my television for the last 5 years. I mean, he has been critical of the organization, extremely critical of the organization, like, to the point where that's what makes me excited about the hire. Mm-hmm. It's because I know he recognizes it. And same with Danny Briere. Like, these are two guys that at the end of the day, I feel like they won't let the Philadelphia Flyers slip through their grasp. If they have a say in things, they won't go down quietly. That's what gives me hope. Like, these are two guys that want nothing more than the organization to succeed. This isn't just about their success. This isn't just like I hired a GM. GM wants to do a good job because it translates to more GM jobs down the line. These are two guys that are it probably pains them to see this organization in the state it's in. Because you think about when Briere was playing, the state it was in, the connections with the alumni, the connections with Ed Snyder, same with Keith Jones playing with Lindros. And now it's just the feel. It probably just has a corporate, lifeless feel to it that probably just sickened them. And they were like, you know what, we're gonna rebuild Ed Snyder's team the way it should have been. These are the guys who should have received the torch. And that's how it feels for now. Obviously, we haven't seen them do any real work, but it's promising.
Yeah, it is. And to go off that a little bit, I really liked what I heard from Dan Hilferty. And I've seen people on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere, on the radio, complain that, another CEO, or whatever he is. What's he? He's the CEO of Comcast Spector now, right? Dave Scott. I've seen people complain that he isn't a hockey guy, blah, blah, blah. But in that position, you don't have to have a hockey guy.
I prefer if you're not.
Yeah, you just need a guy who understands that there needs to be hockey guys below him, if that makes sense. Like he's not a full-edged Flyers fan. Like, I'm not expecting him to be, but I mean, him bringing up how he skipped class to go down to the parade in 75, just that little connections like that. And again, knowing that you don't need to be a full-on hockey guy. You don't have to know who our 6th overall prospect is in the pool, but know that you have to have hockey guys below you. And he seems like he really knows how to put together a team. And the way that he explained how and why he put this team together the way they did, because, I mean, it is a very unethical kind of approach because we don't really see teams have this kind of front office build, if you will. I mean, they're giving the reins to Danny Briere, and we talked about this last night. I personally think they think Briere is the next best GM in the league. I mean, for you to hand the keys to a guy who, I mean, let's be honest with each other, he doesn't really have that much experience. And yeah, I know he's been an assistant. He's been with Montreal. He's been with that junior league. But at the same time, Keith Jones doesn't have any real experience either. But I think the cohesive collectiveness, if you will, that it's going to come with, especially with Torts involved, I think it's going to work. I really do. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Flyers fan and I'm being optimistic, but I just like what I'm hearing right now, and I look at Briere and I'm like, you just look like a good GM. Like you seem like you would get on a phone and not get fleeced. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a feeling. It's a gut feeling with him.
He might be our version of Kyle Dubas when it's all said and done. That's the swing they're going for when they take it. And I was listening to that same Tortorella interview I mentioned earlier, and he talked about Danny Briere, and he was like, he's really, really unassuming. Like, you think he's sweet, you think he's got the baby face. He's like, nah, but that man has some serious conviction behind closed doors, and I
love that.
I absolutely love that. Dude, it's like it's storybook. Like, every Flyers fan wants it to work. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be honest. Like, if Keith Jones and Danny Briere bring you to glory, I mean, that is storybook.
Yeah.
And for Keith, once we found out that the president of Hockey Ops was just going to be more of an earpiece for the GM and less of a decision maker, then this decision just makes a world of sense. I mean, you have a guy who has connections everywhere. Those broadcast meetings, you get more information than a lot of rooms around the NHL. I swear to God, Keith Jones probably has so much information, and he's seen the way franchises have built teams, Colorado, Tampa, and he mentions these teams whenever he does these interviews and talks about building the skill through the draft, backloading veterans, and then getting your big fish when you've set the cap up in the right place. And these are all things that we love to hear as Flyers fans, because I think the Flyers were operating under that delusion of the past, like, oh, we have so much money, we could just go out and fix things. Like, no, you have to build this the right way. Like, this is why these small markets are overtaking you. This is why a Florida Panthers are able to overtake you. Mm-hmm. It's because of the hard salary cap. So you have to adjust and build your team properly, and we just haven't since its inception.
Forever, right? It seems. Another thing, maybe this is just me being optimistic because we haven't had a lot of things to be optimistic about in the last, 7 years since we were in high school. But looking at it now, hearing everything that I've heard within the last couple of weeks, I'm glad they didn't go out and hire a Shiro to be the president of hockey ops. I'm glad it's not some old hockey guy who does things the old way and kind of controls Briere. I want Briere to have the space and have the freedom to do what Briere wants to do. At the same time, have somebody to go up and talk to. And I think Keith Jones is the perfect guy to have there because he's already talking about how we need to revamp the defense. We need to build from within. That's how you win in today's modern NHL is developing talent. And that's another main thing that he keeps saying. We have sucked. He's been so honest with us. Let's go back on that. He's been so honest with us since his announcement. But the development has sucked, right? And he admit that, and he's been so open with that and the defense and just... I think it's kind of perfect, to be honest, man. I'm not even saying that because I'm so optimistic, but I really do think it's going to be a very cohesive unit. And then you have Torts there to deal with the kind of on-ice thing and then throw his opinion in there, too. I like it. I'm not mad at it at all.
Dan Hilford, he said it in, I think it was one of the YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure, but he said, I know nothing about hockey. He openly said it. Yeah. He said, I know nothing about hockey. That decision is up to them. And that's good. I don't want an owner who acts like he knows hockey. I want this guy over this guy.
Yeah, I don't want Jerry Jones who's in the draft room being I want this guy because because he's the popular guy nationally at the moment. You know what I mean? Exactly.
You want team builders,
mm-hmm.
like we were saying, and the same thing applies to Keith Jones, culture builder. Yeah. He mentioned letting leaks that previously would get out, not letting them get out anymore, letting information that would previously get out. It's little things like that where the president of hockey ops hire can really affect your organization, and I think he has a great pulse on where to take us in that regard.
Jones. Like I said,
because leaks get out here. Let's be real. Our leverage is gone 4 months before a trade because we know about it. We have known Ivan Provorov's on the trade block forever.
Yeah, JVR has been trying to. They've been trying to move JVR for 5 years. Seems
Kevin Hayes thing that got out immediately. The Kevin Hayes to Columbus. I feel like we this trade is going to happen in July, and we knew about it in March.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. It's either Columbus or Carolina. Because I told you yesterday that he has his for sale. I'm pretty sure his penthouse is for sale or for lease or something like that. I saw it on Twitter, so I definitely think he's gone. But yeah, you're right. It's been that way for a while now, right? A decade, where it just seems like everybody in the league knows our move 3 years before it happens, 3 hands before it happens, if you will. You know what I mean? It just seems like we've been on the back burner for so long, man. Just trying to catch up is what it seems
like. Everyone's making out like bandits except us. I look around the league every deadline, every summer, and I'm like, what? I'm like, they got Chychrun for that? Dude, there should be...
It's another guy. It took 8 years to move, but finally happened. And it's just weird like that, man.
It is. It's almost like you have all the leverage until you have zero.
Exactly.
There's no in between.
Until the GM's fuck you. I'm done with the conversation, and then kind of leave, and you're just sitting there.
There's got to be a group chat, dude, and they're like these guys want to move JVR bad. we can't let that happen. We got to just keep fucking refusing the offer, making it worse for them.
I still look back at that and get disgusted. I don't care what anybody says to me about how hard it was to move. I guarantee you, anybody other than Chuck Fletcher gets that done. And I'm not saying it's going to make or break anything. He's gone. They're not bringing him back. That money's off the books. But I just can't help but just to look back on that sometimes and just be disgusted, like you said. It's just, I'm glad that Briere and Jones are here. If I don't know,
And like
breath of
for it
fresh
to be
air.
Danny Briere, I mean,
Yeah,
we're both 23 years old, so like I'm sure everyone who's listening to this podcast loves Danny Briere, but like we grew up on Danny Briere. Danny Briere is our introduction to hockey,
basically.
like, or introduction to meaningful what great hockey in the city could be. Like Danny Briere was my introduction to that, so that's why this is really like I really want this to work out.
The playoff performer, we were just talking about that yesterday. He would just be okay during the regular season, and once the playoffs rolled around, he just flipped the switch and turned into a different player, man. It was just so fun to watch, and like you said, full circle. And if storybook, if this actually works and happens, very, very optimistic is the word for this podcast. I guess we can keep throwing in there because at the end of the day, Dan, we haven't had a lot of things to be optimistic about. So I mean,
well, we couldn't be until that happened.
Yeah,
you know, they could do anything. They could have went out and got Patrick Laine. Yeah, we'd be hyped, but let's be honest, we're not winning dick. Like they had to do that. They did. They had to send that letter, do that press conference, do all the media tour. That's step one.
That's basically.
I mean, obviously, there's more.
That's basically the Rangers letter, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little delayed because I feel like other teams do that in preparation of whereas the Flyers, they did that like 2 years into it.
Yeah.
Because the last brass couldn't accept it, but this brass embraces it, so it's a little weird.
Let's also be honest. The Rangers never actually rebuilt.
No.
Like, people speak and talk about how like what they did as if they went through like a 4-year rebuild.
As if you can replicate it. You know,
there's no way in hell you could replicate it. Two guys, Panarin and Fox, pushed their way into New York. Fox literally said, "I'm not playing for anybody else but New York." Then you win the lottery with Lafreniere. Not that he has turned into anything, thankfully for our sake. I mean, could you imagine if they hit on a number one pick, any other number one pick from any other year, and they're probably still playing right now, right? So
I mean, I look at a Jack Hughes.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the prime example of like your rival hitting the lottery, and now it's burning you for a long time.
Speaking of Lafreniere, just to go off topic real quick, me and Derek and Zach have been talking for the last couple of weeks about possibly, and I don't know why the Rangers would want to get rid of him because he's still so young and he's a restricted free agent, but if we could find a way to go and grab him, I think he's the perfect guy to bring in the kind of situation that we're in. He's 23 years old. He's a former first overall pick. He's labeled as a quote-unquote bust right now. I mean, how many guys... I mean, we've seen a couple of guys this year that were labeled bust by this fan base that finally broke out. You got Frost, who finally had almost 50 points, 42 points I think he had this year. But I think that's in the position that they're in now. I mean, if you're rebuilding and bringing in a player that is young, has a quote-unquote bust label on a team that is looking to contend and doesn't really have time to develop a player like that, I mean, I think that would be a perfect kind of situation. But I don't see why the fuck they would want to get rid of him, and I don't see why they would want him to go to Philly.
Philly, yeah. It's much lower scale. I mean, look at Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett's an example
exactly.
of that.
Like that is the type of project that they need to be bringing in this year. You need at least 2 or 3 guys, forward and defense included, that are under 25 years old and are quote-unquote like Owen Tippett projects, where you're Morgan Frost projects, where you're looking at them, you're like, you see the raw skill, you see the flashes of talent, but they haven't put it together yet. And that's the type of player that I want to go after this summer. But you mentioned the Rangers, and I just automatically thought I'd laugh. I had to get it off my chest.
Oh, yeah. If we were to be involved large scale, like in the offseason, that's the move, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Outside of that, obviously, nothing tremendous is going to happen in the upcoming future, but I'm excited for the summer. I really am.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
I think there's going to be some moves that happen because, dude, and I'm sorry, I keep referencing this Tortorella interview, but he said it straight up in that interview. He was like, I'm going to be honest, like, and he's been saying this, but the way he said it here was crazy to me. He was like, I'm going to be honest. He's like, it's just as simple as we got to take some people out of that room. Like, because they were talking about the first year, and he was like, yeah, I feel like we've made some progress on how to coach certain players. And he's like, because I came in here with a clean slate, not knowing what guy responds well to what, this, that, and the others. He's like, I feel like I got a good sense of that. He's like, some guys, he's like, I bickered with. He's like, but next year we're going to come back and we might be better for it. But there's some guys that I'm just going to take out. And we all kind of have a hunch on who that is. But another thing is, dude, him and Tony D'Angelo clearly had a shouting match.
Oh, something happened, 100%.
And I just really wonder what happened. Because Tortorella said there was three occasions this year where guys came back at him in the room. Mm-hmm. Like, yelled at him back in the room. And I assume one of those was Tony. I don't know. I'm Snoopy, dude. I would love to know more about some of that.
So, absolutely. I don't want to speculate or anything. And everybody take this with a grain of salt. But I'm pretty sure I saw something on Twitter, like right when the season ended, like maybe the week of, that said that 100% something that happened within the locker room between Torts and D'Angelo, but it's never going to come out because no one's going to talk about it, and they want to keep it in the locker room. And
Bro, that's what Tortorella actually had me dying. That's what he said, too. He was like, and a lot's been made of Tony sitting the last 5 games. He's like, and you guys have been all over my ass about that. He's like, so clearly something happened, right? And they all were like, yeah, nod his head. And he's like, you'll never know. I was like, oh my God, he's playing with him.
And, like, that's how you build a culture. Like, keep it... I'm sorry. Putting guys in a position where you can go up to them and kind of get into it with them and then let it get out and kind of use that. Because, like, some coaches go out to the media and, like, try to play games and use it as, like, an underlining thing. But I think keeping it...
Alain Vigneault.
Yeah, like, keeping it in the locker room and, like, not exposing a guy to the media after a bad game and being able to be like, okay, yeah, you can yell at my face, but, like, I respect that kind of thing. And I feel like that's where you have to kind of weed out and see who is going to be able to do that and who's not. And I think that he knows, obviously.
I really respect it because this fan base, for the most part, loves Tortorella, and everything he says, we eat up, we love. He's like, oh, he's spitting facts. But, I don't know. For him to just, like, defend his guys like that, like, he easily could take, and I feel like most coaches do, they take the easy road out. Like, it's appeal to the fans. Yeah. I'm going to appeal to the fans. I'm going to appeal to my higher-ups, my front office. It's not my fault. But I love it when he just, like, he owns it. He's with the team. He defends the guys. Even when the media is almost, like, pushing him into the pool. Like, yo, Sanheim was awful tonight, right? And he's like, dude, just stop asking me that question. You saw it for yourself.
Yeah.
I love it. I loved it when he said that all year. He's like, because they would try to get him to dunk on players. And it's like, I get it. It's your job, like... And if a player had a bad game, you got to address it. But it's also, he can respond to it any way he'd like to, and that's how he chose to respond to it.
But you need Tortorella to dunk on Travis Sanheim, to write about Travis Sanheim being bad that night. Like, go watch the game. I mean, you watch the game for yourself. Go write the story about how he was bad. You don't need John Tortorella to turn around and tell you that Travis Sanheim is bad because it's never going to happen. And it happened more than once this season with the media in the Philadelphia with the Flyers. Like, it's not going to happen. You're never going to see that man dunk on one of his players the way you guys want to, so you can go write a story. I just don't understand. You watched the game. You saw how bad Travis Sanheim had. Like, he was bad last year. You don't need John Tortorella to say whatever you want him to say to write a story, to do your job, essentially, right? Like, am I wrong for that?
No, I agree. I mean, we've said it all year. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I personally think Tortorella, a response like that, if I'm a media member and Tortorella gives me, like, some kind of jab back or a response where I'm like, yo, like, why is he coming at me? That's more of a story. That's more of a clickbait, if you will, than if he just said, we were bad tonight. Like, no one wants to see... Actually, it's refreshing, really. Like, no one wants that cookie-cutter answer. Yeah. No one wants that break down the Sanheim goal for me. To me, honestly, I watch his interviews more because of moments like that. So, I don't know. I feel like the story kind of writes itself. I mean, the guy's a walking quote. Just write what he says and people will click on it. Even if it's negative. Even if it's at you. Go watch the game for yourself. Come on, put that in there. Yeah. But that's John Tortorella. Like, that is interesting. That's spicy. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong.
No, you're not. I mean, dude, if I was able to be in there and ask questions and John Tortorella told me to go watch the tape instead of asking him a dumb question, I would write a blog and be like, John Tortorella told me to go watch the fucking tape and just make, like you said, it's more of a a clickbait kind of thing if he tells you to basically just go fucking watch tape. I mean, that's funny. Like you said, he's a walking quote. I just don't understand.
My God. Like, we would have so much fun with that.
Yeah.
I could just see, like, the Derek article now. He'd be like, so I did. And then he would, like, break down, like, 10 different pieces of tape.
Dude, I love Derek, dude. Derek, he's definitely going to be listening to this, but that I can definitely see something like that happen. That's funny as shit. Derek and fucking Torts going back and forth at each other. I would love to see that.
Another player he mentioned was Joel Farabee. He said Farabee gets a clean slate for him next season. He said they had a lot of issues in the beginning of the season. He knew it was rough on him coming back from the injury, but he said that they had a lot of verbal disagreements early in the season, but later in the season, especially when Joel's play began to pick up, they were really like lockstep.
So he was the other one, huh? He was the
well, because do you remember that there was like reports that he may have been going to his agent.
Dude, he blocked us, so I do remember that. During that little period.
Come on, Joel. But he's another guy, man. Like, if you can get him back on the trajectory that he was on, like that's huge.
I mean, yeah, any rational Flyers fan this year. I mean, we made our jokes, but at the end of the day, last year was not a free pass, but hey, if you're not Joel Farabee this year, it's okay. I mean, the surgery that he got wasn't. I mean, he was on the ice this summer because I remember reading reports that he was skating, but he definitely wasn't able to have the same kind of training. I mean, lifting weights, all that kind of stuff, the way he probably would have. I mean, wanted to. So yeah, last year was definitely not a wash, but hey, clean slate, come in. Do your thing. I mean, he's an important piece to the future. I mean, he's making $5 million for the next 3-4 years. So he's an important guy, just like Morgan Frost is an important guy, just like Cam York, Owen Tippett, Travis Konechny. I mean, these are guys that they're going to be here. They're under 25, and a clean slate for Farabee is definitely the best thing for him and the organization, because you're not going to get anything from him if you're going to look to trade him. Like, no one's going to try to overpay for Joel Farabee right now. So even exploring a trade makes no sense. So clean slate is a green check in my book. I like that move.
He's one of those, like, I shouldn't say house money because he has a decent contract, but he's kind of one of those house money guys for me. Like, I group, because there's going to be Cutter and this pick. Cutter and this pick are going to be the faces. At least I would assume they're going to be the faces of the future.
If anything I'm sorry to cut you off, but if everything works out the way we want it to, yeah, Cutter and this pick coming up are going to be the two guys that take us into the new era. Absolutely.
Well, I guess I should say that they should be the two with the highest ceilings, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, if Frost breaks out and proves that he's a 70, 80-point guy and improves on last year, then we have three of guys that are kind of. It's just there's a lot of possibilities, Danny. It's not all dark.
No, it's not. And like, maybe I'm just at the point in the summer or at the point in the off season where I'm just starting to hype myself up for nothing. But I'm just thinking about like the forward group, especially if they grab one here. Like, let's just say you get Cutter, Dvorsky, Frost, Tippett. I mean, you talk about Owen Tippett. Like, he's a guy you probably should have 30 next year. I mean, he had 27. You have to think, like, I mean, he might regress a bit, but, I mean, all signs to me would point towards, oh, this player is getting more comfortable. He finally has a team he's comfortable with and with a coach he's comfortable with. He gets playing time.
Yeah, coach
I would have
him.
to think he's going, loves him. I would have to think he's only going to continue to take steps. And then you think about Tyson Forrester.
Yeah.
Bobby Brink. Joel Farabee. Like, there's some depth in that pipeline.
There's a lot on that right side, man.
It always was about getting the top. It was the cherry on top. You got to get that box office piece at the top and the rest of the pipe. But it seems like if they get that, they do have some depth underneath to really work with and to keep developing, because they keep stressing like we need to fix our development. It's been an issue here for a long time, and it has. I mean, you talk about like a lot of these players on this team should have been better than they are by now. Yeah. I mean, it's just the reality of it. Like Provorov, what he was projected to be, Konechny just hit 30 this year when I think he could have hit 30 3 years ago. I mean, Farabee as well. I mean, it seems like his consistency issues have only gotten worse. Like his sophomore year, he was money. Obviously the injury. But
it goes back to what Keith Jones says and how bad they've been at developing. I mean, that's been one of the main vocal points of his message in the last week and a half is we have to get better at developing. The drafting itself hasn't been terrible, but it's just developing them after getting drafted and putting them in spots to succeed has just been terrible. And I'm glad that's another spot, just a really dark spot that's been hovering over this team for the last 10 years that he's immediately shown a light on. It's extremely, like I said to begin the podcast, weightlifting for me personally, just to see him just shine lights on things that I felt like I was sitting here going crazy over. You know what I mean? But Gauthier WHC and this pick it's huge, man. It really is, because like you said, we do have the depth. Like, do I think Owen Tippett and Morgan Frost are going to be star players, 90-point, 80-point players? Probably not, but I mean, there's a possibility there. But I think they're going to be good depth guys behind guys that could be the guys, if that makes sense. I said guys a lot there, but good depth guys in front of the two superstars that we need is what I'm trying to say. So, man, like, there's light, right?
Yeah, and it's like, dude, Tyson Forster. I mean, he the only reason he falls under the radar is just because there's so many other players to talk about, and he only came up for about 8 games, and this year was always like about the young guys anyway. So there was definitely other young guys to hone in on and focus on. But like, dude, that's a guy. Like,
absolutely. I mean, this is his first healthy full year. I mean, he's been injured with that shoulder the last 2 years, in and out of lineups, just constantly hurt, to be honest. And this was his first go at it with the Phantoms and the Flyers as a pro without being injured, and he was fucking awesome, man. Like, he was first in points on the Phantoms. He had 7 points in his first 8 NHL games with us. Showed off that shot. I mean, he genuinely has, and I'm not just saying this, one of the best shots I think I've ever seen. I mean, it's ridiculous. If that's the only elite quality that he has, he'll be a 20-goal scorer in the league. Like, if his skating's ass and he really just can't keep up with NHL talent, you just put him on a power play and let him shoot, and he'll score 20 because it's that good of a shot. So it's really exciting because he is a guy, and he doesn't really get the light shown on him that he should. But I think the 7 points in 8 games that he just put up and what he's going to do hopefully coming up here, it's special because, I mean, he's a guy that me and Derek talk about all the time. The development that he's made since being drafted, the playmaking has translated since from when he was a junior playing with in there. Skating is as if I mean, it's not the best right now, but it's certainly it's improved, and it's not going to hinder him. So it's really exciting. It really is. Him and Gauthier on their walls on the power play is something that I've been thinking about since 3-4 months ago, after I saw Cutter in the World Juniors just blasting shots from the dot on the wall.
And John's glowing reviews for Tyson Forster. Like, I've never heard him talk about a player, at least in this organization, I have yet to hear him talk about a player quite like that. There's, like, he always has some kind of negative to toss in there. I mean, all good, honest coaches do, I guess. But with him, it's like, nah, he's just straight blushing, dude.
Yeah, right?
He loves what he saw out of. Whatever he saw, I mean, we just read the point totals. Like, trust me, we know Tyson Forster was great, but he definitely saw something in there that gave him a ton of promise on this guy. And I'm so excited to see it. Like, if you think about it, if say you get, like, a Dvorsky, a Benson, like, if Cutter and him become top-line guys, and you get a Frost, Tippett, a Farabee, let's say they become, like, decent second-line guys, and then you could get, like, a Forster included, and then you can get, like, a Cates, Brink, Desnoyers to eventually round out your depth down the line. Like, there's... It's definitely exciting to think about, and there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel, and this is the last time I'm going to mention that interview, but he said he has written a lineup for when if the team is fully healthy, and he makes the subtractions he thinks that we're going to make in the offseason. So I wish I could see that lineup. I would love to see that lineup, because I would love to see who he has penciled out of it. I'd love to see who he has penciled into it, where they're at.
I would pay a lot of money to see that fucking list, dude. I'm not even kidding. That's a list. Like that list and their draft ranking list are the two lists that I need to, like, sneak into the skate zone and steal from Briere's
Not under
office.
Jonesy's watch.
Yeah, right.
Not under Jonesy's watch.
He's gonna have the guards at the door standing there, like
Chuck
nah.
would have let us in.
Yeah, Chuck
You would have been like, "That's TOY."
Yeah, Chuck would have dabbed us up with the Cresco in his hand, bro. Like, what's up? What's up? I'm thinking about another Tony D'Angelo trade. Like, dude, put the pen down.
Yeah.
What do you think he's doing?
Oh, he's on vacation.
Yeah.
Probably with Dave Scott. They're probably at the same mountain house.
Speaking of Cutter Gauthier, because we've been talking about him with the whole Forrester thing, but I think this is time that we can kind of get into a deep dive with him, because he is at the World Hockey Championships, Danny, and he is one of the youngest player in the entire tournament, and he is 9th in points and then 2nd in goals. So, I mean, he's just been incredible, to put it lightly. Yeah, I mean, he's just been one of the best players in the tournament as a 19-year-old. So, I know it's not against the best competition, especially in the preliminary rounds, but it's better than him not doing this, right? Like, I don't understand that logic with some people. Like, would you rather him not be doing this, or would you rather him be doing it? Because I would personally rather him be scoring goals and leading the entire tournament with 40 shots on net in 7 games. Like, that's what I want. I don't know if you would rather him have 0 points. Like, I don't understand the logic there.
Those people are weirdos. Let them be. Like, I've come to realize that, like, I just don't think they care or follow the team as much as.
Yeah. And
trust me, I'm not someone to gauge. Like, you can follow as however much you want. Like, I really don't. I'm not that kind of person. Like, oh, you gotta be a diehard. Mm-hmm. But like, you could kind of tell some people who, like, dude, we're fans of the Philadelphia Flyers. We want the Philadelphia Flyers to win. Any steps taken towards that happening positively, like, we're going to react positively towards that. You would think anyone who watches every game, follows the team, would want the product to be better. But what that tells me is that these people are just checked out. That they see these tweets and they're like, oh, classic Flyers, hiring another ex-Flyer, haha. And it's like, dude, you don't even watch this team.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't. Like, you just watch Phillies games. Like, and it's fine. Like, you can tune in when they're good. That's cool. But, like, when it comes time for conversations like this and what the fans really want, I don't know. I've come to realize that I just don't think some people care.
I just think some people, I mean, company, misery likes company. That's the saying, right? So, I mean, just these people, I mean, and you get it. I mean, we look back on the last 10 years and how bad it's really been. But, I mean, at the same time, I don't know how some people sit there and just all doom and gloom all the time. Like, how do you look at your best prospect, put up the points that he's putting up and put up the shots that he's putting up and just being really good in a tournament where he's playing men as a 19-year-old. And it's just the fact that you can be negative about that. Like, 7 games played, 6 goals, 2 assists, 8 points, plus 10 with 40 shots on goal. And that leads the tournament. He's been on the ice for 10 goals, 4, and 0 against. Like, I want my prospect to be doing that. I'm going to be excited about that. And if you're going to have a problem with that, then, like, don't listen to us. Don't follow us. You know what I mean? I just don't understand the process of letting people know that you're not excited about it. Like, okay.
Especially for him. Like a Morgan Frost, like, I can understand. Like, I gave the haters a lot of shit, but at the end of the day, late first rounder, definitely was some question marks. Like, oh, yeah. I can see the skepticism. With a player like this, like, Cutter feels inevitable. Like, it really feels like he's going to go back to BC. Him and Ryan Leonard, they're just going to destroy college for a year. And then whenever he shows up to the NHL, I think he's going to just take off like he never left college. Like, it remains to be seen.
He has an NHL shot right now. Like, he could play in October coming up and be fine. Like, his shot is really, really, really good. And speaking of Ryan Leonard, because I was literally just about to say something about him 10 minutes ago, but we've been talking about Dvorsky and Benson, and I would absolutely take Benson in a heartbeat, but I always go back to the fact that how cool would it be if we drafted one of Leonard or Will Smith at 7, and they went to BC with Cutter, tore up college hockey, and then both turned pro in April. Like, that would be so cool to have two guys.
That's your duo.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's your 1-2 down. Like, for the next 10 years, man.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
Seriously. It's just like that's really an exciting thing to think about, because if that happens, if we draft one of those guys, I am going to be watching BC games probably more than I'm going to be watching Flyers games. And I don't care if that's a controversial thing to say, because I will be watching Ryan Leonard or Will Smith with Cutter Gauthier. So I always go back to that. I always go back to the fact that like that would be really fucking cool to see. But it's probably Zach Benson if he's there, because I mean I would be running up to the podium. If Michkov is there, it's got to be Michkov 100%. I wouldn't be mad like Dvorsky. There's so many picks that are good picks at that spot, man. That really excites me, because I think people who are so miserable, not to like really harp on these people because they're not a lot. It's a far and between. It's like a handful of people.
Bro, I mean, I'm miserable. Like, yeah. Dude, I'm a miserable guy, but you don't see me bitching and moaning on the timeline every day. I mean,
yeah, I know, but I could definitely see why. But I don't know. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for this clean look. Danny Briere, Jones, the draft coming up. We're going to get a good player. And I think, like I was about to say, these people are so miserable and like they're so in the fog of that darkness that they don't realize that we're going to get a good player here. Like, it's not Connor Bedard. Yeah, it's not Adam Fantilli. And it's probably not going to be Leo Carlson. But this is one of the deepest drafts in the last decade. We are going to get a very good player. And with Cutter Gauthier doing what he's doing, how could you not be optimistic? Because like you said, these are potentially two guys that are going to be the face of the franchise for the next 10 years. Hopefully. If the right pick is made. So, we'll see, because I mean, as much as we've given shit with Chuck Fletcher, his drafts looking good. I mean, he's the one who drafted Cutter Gauthier, right? He's the one who drafted Tyson Forster. He's the one that drafted Cam York. He's the one that drafted Emil Andre. He's the one that drafted Bobby Brink. I mean, and that's Flair too. And Flair's still here. So I do have confidence that they're going to make the right pick, because I think recently, especially since Flair has taken over as like the draft guy, they have been able to to recognize talent. Now it's time to develop that talent with Cam York, with Tyson Forster, with Cutter Gauthier. And I'm excited for that 7th pick. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I'm optimistic, and it's fun to be optimistic again, because I mean, we've been in a rut for the last 4 years of just fucking just miserable.
I mean, we're 23. Mm-hmm. I'd say like locked into the intricacies of the team, like everything since I was 13, and I've loved the team since I was a little kid. But yeah. I've never had this feeling in my entire fandom that I do feel like one day down the line in this process, I'm going to get the team I always wanted. It's not now, it's not next year, it might not even be 3-4 years. I just feel like at some point down the line, it feels different. I'm finally going to get a team that I could be like, yo, I think we're going to win. We'll see. But with the mediocrity, the Giroux era, with the Voracek, that core, cool. You just never had that feeling. It was just always a terrible feeling. It really was. Yeah. All those seasons. Like it would be December and the team had a losing record. They'd go on a run. January, February, March. Barely squeak in or just barely miss the playoffs. And it went that way for about like 10 years. So I want to get back to winning, man. I haven't seen the Flyers win a real playoff series. Like, I don't count the bubble. I haven't seen the Flyers win a real Stanley Cup playoff series since I was 12, 13 years old. And that's really what it boils down to. And now it feels like I'm finally going to get a team that could do it down the line with this front office. Or
at least you finally have the confidence or the optimism in the front office to do the job. Because that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of wording it. Because that's really where I was at in like 2021, 2022. It's like, where do you start? Like I said earlier in the episode, where do you start in this process of healing? And it felt like for a while, well, maybe they just won't get out of it. At least that's how I started to feel after a while. Maybe they're just destined to be mediocre forever. Yeah. But they finally nutted up and committed to a process. And that's what you have to do. Yeah. Enough Band-Aids. You can't Band-Aid something that like a cut that's too big. You got to get a cast for that, bro. Like, you can't... Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying.
It's not even a cut, man. That thing was a fucking wound.
Yeah. Straight broken bone.
Right, dude? For sure.
Trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
But to go back to cut a Gauthier real quick. That World Hockey Championship performance, although, like I said, the preliminary hearings aren't the best competition, but, I mean, you would still like to see him do it, right? It's still nice. I mean, just watching him on that stage with a Flyers logo next to him when, like, the graphics pop up, it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I like having a guy in, like, a national tournament where everybody's watching, and it's our guy doing the cool thing, and not the fucking Ducks guy.
Or the Devils.
Something. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Or the Rangers.
Oh,
or
wait,
Columbus.
The fucking Florida Panthers have him? Like, how many times have you said that to yourself in the last 3 years? Sharon something. He was on Michigan. He scored an overtime winner. And I'm like, yo, that shot was disgusting. This kid's played really well this game. I'm like looking him up. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he just got drafted in the first round. I'm like, who has him? Florida. I feel like that's been something that's been happening for the last 6 years, where I'm just like watching national games, World Hockey Championships or World Juniors, and it's just like, oh, that guy's good. Oh, he's skilled. He's a Ranger. Or he's a fucking Calgary Flame. Like, what?
Or dude, I remember like Braden Point, his come up. I was like, oh my god, they really got another player, bro.
I know, Braden Point. I mean, you see John Cooper on TNT?
Yeah.
The panel? Like, that was awesome, I thought. I mean, I thought he brought a really cool perspective to that table that we don't really see. And I just thought TNT does a really good job. I mean, TNT, the basketball side with Shaq and all them, they do a really good job. Like, they're extremely entertaining. So I think it's like a high bill to kind of stand up to, if you will, for the hockey side. But I mean, I think they do a pretty good job with it because it's entertaining.
And honestly, I just love John Cooper. Like, there's a lot of people out there that think he's like, yeah, they hate him. They think he's corny. But I think when I really started to love John Cooper was when they played Toronto last year when they won, and he gave a speech to them. I think it was either after Game 5 or Game 6, and they had won 2 cups, and the story and maybe they're the Stanley Cup hangover. Maybe it's finally catching up to them, and he like gave them a like spirited speech, like, yo, you're at the door of greatness. Why the fuck are you knocking? Break that shit down. And they won like 2 series convincingly after that, and I love John Cooper. I do.
He knows what to say, right? He knows how to get the boys going. He's just a good coach, and I mean, a lot of people are gonna come back at that and be like, well, I could coach that team. Look at who's on the team, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, that's bullshit at the end of the day. He's a good coach, one of the best in the NHL, and I just thought it was really cool that TNT brought him on, and I thought he fit really well. Like, I didn't really see... Like, I know he's used to talking to the media, like, on TV, but I really felt like he was kind of a natural. I was like, damn, he's just kind of chilling up there, kind of vibing, if you will.
Definitely.
Speaking of those playoff series in TNT, we got Vegas and Dallas tonight. What's that series at? 2-0 Vegas. Looking fucking Vegas. And those games have been close, too. Those
OT.
have both been overtime games. So, I mean, that sucks for Dallas if we're being serious.
Dude, that Carolina series is the closest 3-0 series I've ever seen.
I'm sorry. First game's 3-2 Panthers and quadruple overtime. Game 2 is 2-1 Panthers in single overtime. And then the last game's a 1-0 game. I mean, they were just playing suffocating defense with Bob standing on his head. I mean, that's how you win playoff games. That's what we said. I mean, how many times have we been on this podcast, Danny, and said, all you need is your goal to catch fire in the playoffs, and everything comes into place. We saw it with Montreal a couple years ago. I mean, it happens all the fucking time. It's not
they have the exact model I mean, dude, like, it makes sense. Like, they weren't the best regular season team, and, like, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, that team maybe gets more penalties called on them in the regular season. Maybe they don't play that way. And there was the Keith Tkachuk comment that they played soft, and ever since then, they started playing harder, shit like that.
Speaking of Tkachuk,
but they're just built for it.
Oh, they're definitely built for it. But Matthew Tkachuk is a fucking monster, dude. He's a top 5 player in the league. I don't care if that's a hot take. I don't
Easy.
care.
Best American, top 5, easy.
He is
Easy. Not even close.
fucking unreal, dude. I mean, if you were to go into a lab...
It goes...
Okay.
I'm sorry. It goes Matthew Tkachuk and then like dash, 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 Austin Matthews. Facts.
Where's Jack Hughes?
Facts. Jack Hughes, yes. Yes. He might even be above Matthews, yeah.
Ooh, spicy. But no, seriously, like Matthew Tkachuk has been so fucking entertaining this playoffs, and the fact that he's scoring OT goals and then just going straight into the locker room, I find that fucking hilarious. Like if I was a Florida fan, or if he was on the Flyers doing that, could you imagine? Not that I make everybody sad listening to this, but could you imagine having?
Oh, that's
Matthew
what
Tkachuk?
I imagine. Oh, when I watch him play, I'm like, he should be a Flyer.
Oh, he's a perfect Flyer. He's the prototypical Flyer.
And Tortorella, like,
oh my god, dude.
just seeing the way he responds to Paul Maurice,
yeah,
like, dude, he should be a Flyer.
I was just gonna say, if you were gonna go into a lab and create a Flyers player, a prototypical Flyers player, out would come Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, a guy who is a winner. Teammates love him. Everyone in the fan base loves him. There's no, like, oh, he's a bad captain. Oh, he doesn't get the guys fired up. All that weird narrative shit that we love here in this market doesn't happen with Matthew Tkachuk. No. It's just unanimous love. And statues.
And because of Matthew Tkachuk, I seriously think Ryan Leonard is going to skyrocket, if not skyrocket, because he's already high. But I think he's going to go higher than a lot of people think, like maybe 5th, 6th, because of guys like Matthew Tkachuk. Because if there's a guy in this draft that you look at and go, okay, you look like Matthew Tkachuk, you play like Matthew Tkachuk, like I could see your play style transitioning over to the NHL as a Matthew Tkachuk type, is Ryan Leonard. So,
is he this year's Cutter?
Yeah. Him and Dvorsky have been this year. I think it's a group of 3 guys. I think it's Dvorsky, I think it's Oliver Moore, and I think it's Ryan Leonard. If you pick any one out that has skyrocketed the most, I probably would say Leonard. But yeah, Leonard's definitely one of them, because I mean he wasn't, especially in the beginning of the year, he wasn't even thought of to go top 10. He's 100% going to go top 10 in this draft. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I always go back to thinking about him and Gauthier and BC together. It's just, I mean, because he's right-handed. So,
if you don't mind me asking, where was he ranked at the beginning of this year?
I think like mid-teens. Late 20s, okay. Like early 20s, and then he kind of he's just come up steadily within the rankings. He's just, there's nothing about Ryan Leonard's game that you look at and you're like, that's not going to translate. He can skate. His shot's one of the best in the draft. He'll hit you in the chin. He loves playing with contact. He's not dirty, but he's nasty. Great playmaker. I think he's underrated in terms of playmaking. And he's just a really good player all around. Like, he's a guy that's going to play on the PK. He's just solid, man. I really do. Like, he's a guy that could definitely be the target. Because, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day. There are guys that I like Benson, I would take. Will Smith, I would take. But you never know. Like, Danny Briere and Flair could have a list, and fucking Oliver Moore could be 4th on it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I get in the back and forth with guys on Twitter. It happened. We saw it with Moritz Seider a couple years ago. I get in back and forth with people on Twitter, and they're like, no, he would never go that high. Fucking TSN rankings doesn't have him that high. I'm like, do you understand that every fucking team has their own rankings? And fucking Andrew Christel, who I love, could be 7th on other teams' list just because of how skilled he is. Like, yeah, he has the skating concerns, but if he gets better in that retrospect, he's the best playmaker in the draft behind Bedard. Like, I do think Ryan Leonard is on a handful of teams' list at 5, at 4. I really do think so. Because, I mean, we talked about how deep this draft is and how many solid guys are going to be within the 1 to 9 to 10 range. They can go either way. I mean, Derek said it best today. At the end of the day, just pick one of them. They're all going to be good. They're all going to be good players. It's a matter of how good they're going to be and how much you like them. So, if you like Ryan Leonard, go get him, dude. You know, if you like Oliver Moore and how he's the best skater in the draft by far, and how he reminds you of Dylan Larkin, go get him. If you like Taylor Dvorsky because you can't take the puck off his stick when he's on the boards, and he plays like Leon Draisaitl light, go get him. He has one of the best shots in the draft as well. Like, it's just a lot of lot of ways you can go here, man. It really is.
Yeah, and it's not a difficult spot to be in. Like, for the most part, the front of the board is kind of gonna dictate what kind of pool of players falls your way. Like,
Yeah.
I was looking at a Montreal fan on Twitter the other day, and he was like, I almost kind of envy you guys because there's so much more pressure on my team at 5 to get this right. And
Absolutely.
if they get it wrong and someone goes 6 or 7 and becomes a stud, which is very, like, realistically could happen. And I agreed with him. I never thought about it like that, but it's absolutely true.
It's 1,000% true, and that's why I kind of like. Of course, you want 5, you want 4 or 5 or 6, but I'm kind of, in a way, in retrospect, glad that we have 7 because I think when it all is said and done, Danny, I think on draft day when we're sitting wherever the fuck we're sitting watching, and 7 pops up, we're all going to know who we want. I think the board is going to fall in a way where it's just a no-brainer. It's going to be Miskov sitting there. It's going to be Benson sitting there or Smith. It's going to be a guy where everyone's just like, okay, there are 3 dudes up there that you could take that nobody cares if it's one or the other. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I think we're in a position where it's just going to be kind of easy. I think Montreal, the Sharks, and Arizona are going to have difficult picks because they're going to make the decision for us. Who are you going to pick before us? So we have the opportunity to get the guy that fell, kind of thing. Like, I personally think Leo Carlsson goes second. I think he's at this point a little bit better than Adam Fantilli. I mean, he's absolutely unreal. If I was the Ducks, I would go Carlsson. I don't know if that's a hot take to most people, but not that pushes anybody else down. But that's already kind of a shaking of the draft, if you will, at number 2. Because now a lot of people have Fantilli locked into 2. I don't. I think it can go either way. So we'll see.
I am jealous of the position Columbus is in.
Yeah. Columbus is going to either get Michkov or Leo Carlsson or Adam Fantilli. No matter how the board drafts, no matter what Anaheim does, they're going to get Michkov, Carlsson, or Fantilli. So they're cool.
Like, at that point, did you even lose the lottery?
No, you didn't. No. Because I don't know if you read Derek's article today about his evaluating system that he does with prospects and that he made up. It's fucking awesome. Great article. And based on the system that he has going through the attributes that prospects have going into the NHL, I think Dvorsky's second overall behind Fantilli, then Carlson's third, Bedard's fourth, I think. Hold on, I have it right here. Be patient with me. Be patient with me. I'm pretty sure the order that I just said is the correct order, but my whole point is, like I said 10 minutes ago, there are going to be teams that have different types of boards. And based on Derek's board and the system that he created, which is a pretty good system if you go and look at it, he has Adam Fantilli first, Leo Carlsson second, Dalibor Dvorsky third, Connor Bedard fourth, Michkov fifth, Leonard sixth, Oliver Moore seventh, Smith eighth, and then Zach Benson ninth. So within this board, if everybody before us takes those guys, we would end up with Oliver Moore or Will Smith. So, I mean, I'll take it, right?
Yeah, like, that is not a consolation prize
Not at
by
all.
any means.
Like, either we're going to end up with a good fucking player, man. As long as I don't hear, like, Nate Danielson at 7, I won't lose my fucking mind. Like, there's no scenario that I see happening in the next month where I'm losing my mind. So, that's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to know we're going to get a guy that I really like. So, it's exciting.
I agree. So for now, it's just, I mean, these are the dog days, right?
Oh, yeah, we're in the...
Nothing's going to happen now. Now it's just going to be you ride out the Stanley Cup playoffs, you go into the off season, and then around June, things pick up. Like, I actually can't wait for June because, late June, the jersey's going to get revealed, the draft's going to happen, then the moves start. We finally get to see what Briere and company have in store for us.
Speaking of that, the jersey, I kind of forgot about that. I'm excited to see whenever the fuck they drop that. But, I mean, just to see the new color, I'm digging it. Before we leave off, who do you have winning these series? We got to talk about who we have real quick. Because Got the Florida Series 3-0, which I think,
Yeah.
I don't know if you think.
Unfortunately, that for Carolina, that is Florida.
They're missing Svechnikov,
but it's so close. Yeah, but dude, this kills Carolina all the time. Like even when they're healthy, I feel like they just they get tapped out of the goal scoring. And I saw Derek make a point in the regular season about they're almost too skilled. Like it gets in their mind that sometimes they don't just put on the simple shot.
Yeah.
And ever since he made that point, and I tune into Carolina games, it's made a ton of sense. And I agree. I think at a certain point they tap out of that goal scoring because they're so skilled, they're so talented, and their chemistry is so like the way they snap that puck around is insane. It almost could be a detriment to them at times.
Yeah,
but that's my opinion.
They've been weird. Now, I agree. I saw a thread today on Twitter. They were talking about how many times are we gonna just chalk it up to Carolina running into a hot goalie, kind of thing. Because this has been the story for Carolina since what, Danny? 2019, 2018.
Yeah, it's always impressive. Like sometimes grueler, but impressive first two series where you're like, whoa, this team can go on a run. Mm-hmm. Then they hit the conference finals, and it's like, what happened?
Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from Sergei Bobrovsky. Like he has been absolutely incredible this year, standing on his. This playoff, standing on his head. But at the same time, I feel the same way about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like how many times are you going to chalk it up to a bad ref or getting stoned by a goalie for a series? Like at a certain point, your guys have to break the fuck through. You have to go and win the game. Like if I was a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and what happened, and I saw what I saw on Twitter about somebody posting an expected goals stat about how like they were unreal. They should have scored their goals. Like their expected goals for that game were really high. Like at a certain point, get that shit out of my fucking face, man. Like there's a time and a place to bring up those kind of stats. At playoff time, win the fucking game. Find a way to do it. I don't care how you do it. Florida does it. Look at the way they beat Toronto. The expected goals for Toronto in Florida that last game was lopsided in Toronto's favor, and Florida has done what? All fucking playoffs long. Find ways to win games, and that's what you do. That's how teams win, and Toronto has not been able to do it because their guys... let's be honest, I don't think that group is chalked up to win in the playoffs. They have to trade one of those four in Toronto. Not to get completely sidetracked, because it gets me heated thinking about them. I don't know why, but you got to trade one of those four guys because they're not built to be together in the playoffs. I don't know if it's... I don't care if it's Morgan Riley or I think personally Austin Matthews makes the most sense because he's not re-signing. I don't think, but
it's the mix of personalities.
Right.
It's a team full of guys who waited in the offseason for their contracts to be signed. Team full of guys who didn't show up to training camp until their contracts got signed, until they got the dollar amount they wanted. Yeah. I feel like it's a lazy take, but like I feel like that almost sets a bad culture off the hop.
Precedent?
Bad precedent off the hop. Like if you have a bunch of guys who holding out to get this dollar amount, and in some cases it's really not that big of a difference, like maybe $500,000. You got guys holding out instead of going back and like it just shows where their priorities are. Yeah. I don't know, because like at the end of the day, if you're making $10+ million, it's not like you're
gotta break the fuck through at some point.
A two-way contract, fucking minor league player. It's like no, like what? Why can't you take? It's $11.5 million. Why can't you take 10.7? Like I don't know. Why did you have to cause such a stir? Or Marner getting 10.9. Why couldn't you just take like 9.9 and just give everyone that like. That win, like, oh, the hometown kids signed for less, like, just give them the PR win. Like, it's not me to pocket watch or anything, but, like, I look at the Boston Bruins. Like, do you think those guys would hold out on each other? You think those guys would skip camp and then look Patrice Bergeron in the eye and be like, oh, I just wanted an extra $50K? Like, no, dude. Like, it's just different.
That's actually a really fucking good point, dude. That's a really good point. That's a good take. I respect the fuck out of that take because at the end of the day, I agree. Like you said, they're going to walk in and look at Patrice Bergeron's face and say, yeah, I want extra 50. Yeah, I agree. Boston is. I mean, we talked about how long that Boston's, as much as we hate them, how good their culture is, and how well they handle any type of adversity has gone their way in terms of like playoffs, off the ice stuff. Like I thought Patrice Bergeron handled that. Mitchell Miller, I think his name was. Like the way, like Patrice Bergeron and Marchand handled that better than the actual fucking organization did, which was actually pretty disgusting to see. But to go back, like just to go on about Patrice Bergeron and the culture that they built in there, I totally agree. I think that's not brought up as much as it should be. And I think that's what we're doing here, Danny. I think that's the main goal. Everyone makes fun of the whole culture thing, but it really does. It does matter. It's obviously it's not everything. Yeah, like I know we need skill to win. No shit. Thanks. I need star players, at least 3. I know. But at the same time, you need good culture. You can have all the fucking skill guys in the world. Look at McDavid. Look at Draisaitl with Edmonton. And I'm not saying they have a bad culture, but I mean, you see it with Toronto too. Those guys just aren't going to win together because they don't push each other. You know, it's just they're all just floating. It seems like when playoff time rolls around, and I think that's why you have guys like Matthew Tkachuk who just don't float, who want to play playoff hockey, and just I don't know.
And then you have the guys under him. They almost feed off it.
They see that shit exactly.
Yeah, they thrive in it. Like a guy like Bennett, like it's the perfect chemistry mold.
Do you know what it
They're a
me
great
of?
regular season team.
They are.
That's what the Leafs are. They're great. Let's go buy a ticket and watch a regular season game. Yeah, you're gonna see some very high end talent.
You know why?
But why?
Because in the playoffs, Austin Matthews is not allowed to skate down the wall with all free space and let that beautiful wrist shot go. You don't have the time and space to do that, so you have to play.
Gotta get dirty.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't do that. That group doesn't do that. I don't know if they have to move one of them and bring in a guy who kind of like wakes them the fuck up kind of thing. Because like I wouldn't give up on all of them, but I would trade one of them and try to bring in a guy who would kind of mesh better with them because they're not winning anything with that in my opinion.
They got outplayed by Tampa.
Yep.
And Tampa wasn't Tampa this year. And they still should have lost.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you know what it kind of reminds me of? And what I'm going to use a basketball reference, but it comes back to the culture and how you can lead a team, and I think that's what a guy like Matthew Tkachuk does, and why that's so important. I was watching a video the other day, and it was Team USA versus Spain. And I think it was Kobe Bryant up against Paul Gasol, and everybody knows how close Kobe Bryant and Paul Gasol are. And it was like a documentary kind of video, and LeBron and Chris Bosh, I think his name was like they were telling the story. I think Carmelo Anthony too. And Kobe walked right up to LeBron and everyone. It was like, first play, I know the play. I'm gonna run right through Gasol's chest. And like they're best friends, like they're brothers. And sure enough, first play, he was like double screen. Paul Gasol's the last screen, and Kobe Bryant runs right through his fucking chest. I mean, sends Paul Gasol flying. And LeBron and everyone's like, holy fucking shit. Like, he just sent a message saying, yeah, that's my brother and all, but he's not my brother today. Like, we're fucking enemies today. And I feel like as a teammate, when you see that shit, like, damn, he just sent his fucking brother, one of his best friends, went right through his fucking chest and then said, get the fuck up to him. Like, that, you see, me personally, I see that. I see my teammate do that, dude. I'm running through a wall, and I think like that's what you really need. You have to have players who are willing to do stuff like that to set a culture, and have the skill guys see that happening, and then that fires the skill guys up, and they go out and go top right. You know what I mean? It's just that's what you really need. And culture's so important, man. It really.
They've just been handed everything. These guys. I mean, they're all high overall picks who have never had to fear for their job or their ice time. And when they did under Babcock, they quickly got him out of there. I mean, these are guys that have never faced real... I mean, they face adversity every single year.
Wait. I'm sorry to cut you off again, but they wrote smiley faces on their gloves because apparently Mike Babcock made life miserable for them, like in playing hockey. So they wrote smiley faces on their gloves or something. I don't know if that story's true or not, but I did see something speaking of that nature. And I'm just like, all right. Jesus Christ, dude. Like, let me play you the world's smallest violin. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I'm not defending all the shit that Mike Babcock has done. He's done some pretty shitty things, and he said some pretty shitty things. But, Jesus Christ, dude. You want every fucking coach to come in here and baby you? Like, so you're happy playing hockey? Like, yeah, of course you want to be happy. You want to have fun playing the game that you love. But, I mean, it's not all going to be sunshines and rainbows. Some shit's going to suck. You're going to get called out. Just like John Tortorella calls out the players that he does. That's what you need. You need somebody who loves you, but is still going to tell you that you're a dumbass and you're fucking up. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want personally in any kind of relationship that I'm in. Somebody who supports me, but at the same time turns around and tells me that, hey, what you're doing right now is not right. Stop. You know what I mean? Like, that's, for me personally, I think that is very important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like I said, they've never faced any real adversity. Yeah, they're in that market. Yeah, they lose in the playoffs every year, but they've never faced, like, had fear that, yo, my buddy's going to get shipped out, or I'm going to get shipped out. This core is going to be like, they've never played with that desperation of like, I want to do it for the guy next to me. I don't want this team to break up. Like, the way they went down was sad. And you look at Kachuk, like, he had some adversity. He was traded, new organization. You look at the way he's responding, like, you could see the fire in him. Like, he fucking wants it. Like, and you could just tell that the Leafs, when they get pushed, like, they just don't push back.
Yep. And like, I could see people coming at us being like, yeah, because you're definitely in the locker room. You know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is just our opinion. I mean, this is what we're just looking at.
I've seen it
right?
for years. Yeah, like, I've watched all of their series every year for years. And I feel like all hockey fans, all diehard hockey fans, put a little more focus on the Maple Leafs than any other team just because they're the fucking Maple Leafs. They're the mecca of the NHL. They're the biggest market in terms of media press, in terms of Canadian markets, like. So, of course, you pay a little bit more attention to them. And, dude, it's right. Like, they are soft. They don't want it. I mean, this should have been the year, especially beating the Lightning.
Dude,
where
awesome.
You should have... You should have been able to see the desperation on them. Like, yo, if we don't get this done, Dubas is gone. Like, they'd really just let Dubas die like that, man. That's crazy. that guy did everything for them. He babied them. He gave them the little dollar amount they wanted. Mm-hmm. He did everything for them. Got the coach out of there when they were like, dude.
Hired the friendly coach.
It's not even my team.
The player-friendly coach. And Sheldon Keefe. When other guys, more experienced guys, were available at that time. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the Maple Leafs a little bit too long, but fuck them, right? At the end of the day, I kind of enjoy seeing them not be good. Like, fuck you for having four guys who would be the best player on my team by a large margin. So,
just, you would have thought there would have been yo, they can feel it moment.
And there
never was.
Never, not once was there.
And it was
a
the
moment.
same thing with the Sixers. Like, the Sixers were.
Fuck
and
them.
I always compare these two franchises because they're eerily similar. Great regular season teams. As soon as the playoffs hit, they just can't adapt to the style.
It's wild.
They just can't. They don't get foul calls, so they can't adapt to the style. Like, it's really just that simple when it comes to the Sixers. But, dude, they fall off a cliff every year, just like the Maple Leafs. No pushback, and they have prime opportunities too. Good matchups. Like, Maple Leafs will be playing Montreal, Florida. Like, yes, Florida's hot, great goalie, probably at like a bad matchup at the time for Toronto. But you have to be feeling good going into that series if you're the Toronto organization. You have to feel like, yo, we can win this. It's better than Boston. You have to be thinking that. And to come out that flat is fucking ridiculous. It's insane. And, like, the Sixers, you're up 3-2 in the series, and you lay two clunkers. Like, that team just doesn't want it, dude. You can't teach that.
No, yeah, you can't teach heart, man. And that's what it comes down to, especially in the playoffs. That's when playoff performers are made, is when guys who want it, like, hard work beats talent, right? And that's something that we've heard ever since we were little. And that's true. Like, as cheesy as it is, it's fucking true.
Especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Also, I apologize about my fucking dogs, dude. They've been barking insane all day. All fucking day. So annoying.
Nah, you're good. But yeah, I absolutely agree with everything that we just said.
73 minute. We're going to wrap this one up. It's a good one, Danny, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Back for 95 here. Let's go.
With a new president of hockey operations. Yeah. Feeling good. New jerseys on the way. I feel much better in this episode than I probably did recording last episode.
For sure, dude.
Much better.
All you need to do is just hand me the New York number 8 jersey, and I'm cool until October. I'm cool. Or Kate's going 27. What's up with that?
Dude, and we talk about guys who fly under the radar. Noah Cates, man. It's another guy in that depth pipeline.
If Noah Cates gets an ounce of offensive talent into his system, he's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
Bro. Really good. If he takes any kind of offensive leap, oh shit, because he's a fucking stud defensively at that forward position, man. He really is.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of... Oh, man. He really seems like he would be useful in a playoff series in your depth.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, dude. He's my 3C. Legitimately, I want him to be playing C for the next couple of years, get used to it, and then when I'm ready to contend, I want him 3-4C. That's the kind of player that you want battling in your bottom 6 come playoff time, for sure.
I hope Desnoyers might be in there, too.
He's a good forechecker, a little pesty guy, doesn't really give up on the forecheck. Love it. Excited for it, man. Optimistic.
Absolutely. This was episode 95 of Liberty Yo. Follow us on all socials at the Liberty Yo. Follow me at TLY Danny on Twitter and Chris at Chris Stumps.
Go Floor.